What's up, fellas? Welcome to the Better Man Protocol. Now, today I just wanted to touch upon a conversation that I had with my near and dear friend who's a clinical licensed psychologist, and he predominantly works with men now. Kind of found that was like his real calling that he really wanted to help with because that is his lived experience, as such as mine. And we just had this organic conversation for a little over 2 hours. Wish I would have recorded it now because it would have been absolutely fire. It would have been golden for a lot of people to hear. But I just don't like to record everything and make it, a spectacle and have to perform for the video and whatnot. So I'm really trying to just find the balancing ground between all of that. But I wanted to share that conversation, just a little excerpt of that conversation, basically. And what that was around was that he said that a lot of people, including himself, never knew that his pain and suffering at that moment, at the time, could be useful to other people. And it just got me really thinking. I said, man, we just kind of had silence for about 30, 40 seconds and just thought about it. And just the way he explained it to me was that a lot of these men are kind of purposeless. And if people don't have, especially men, if you don't have a purpose-driven life, you kind of fall in the cracks of wherever the wind's going to blow you. And he just explained that the real big difference between the men that end up figuring it out and really pursuing something a little bit deeper, more intellectual, more serving, so to speak, is that every single one of us goes through the same type of story, right? He explained how he was just psychologically mind-fucked as a child and his surrounding, family, community, etc. And even as a young teen with relationships of all kinds. And this drove him because he had some great mentors and some great surrounding, supporting casts to keep supporting and keep helping, reinforce that he is on the right track, that he should just keep on pushing through if this is what he really feels good about. And he said the only difference between the guys that he sees on a regular basis that are coming in for help, that are in these, maybe they're in blue collar jobs and they're really working hard labor, like concrete forming and construction and outdoor labor. They just feel like it's at a dead end and there's no purpose in it and they're just slowly drowning. And he said the difference between those men and then the other men that are, he said, like myself, right, that are trying to build this platform and help other men. And the difference is that they came upon that pain and suffering and either maladapted, which means that you falsely adapt to that situation. You think you adapted, like maladapting to heartbreak would be you closing up your heart and never letting anybody in again because you did get cheated on or you got, wronged by that relationship. But you maladapted, you badly adapted and then built that up and carried it on. And it's a wound that festered and infected. And now it kind of drives your misery when you're alone or you're thinking about things deeply. And anyways, he said, it's either they maladapted wrong and they had nobody there to help them or to fix it. So now they've got, 20, 30 years of scar tissue and whatnot covering that wound, but it was never properly addressed, never properly attended to and healed. So now they carry that wound around with them for the rest of their lives. And maybe now their relationships, or even if they're married, they have kids, they still feel lonely and they still feel like they're just there to pay the bills or just there to put food on the table, or their position is not that intellectually stimulating, but it's all they know and it's all they have. And that's what they're pushing for. And the other reason he said is that there's not a lot of young men like that are growing up that have a really good supporting cast and crew around them, a good family, good friends, mentors, community, so that when you do hit that ceiling and you do hit that pain and you do hit that suffering, instead of having some reinforcement and re-encouragement from other people like I have right now, today I just got a compliment from somebody random that when I was at work, and they just told me, and I was like, man, thank you. Like it really supports and reinforces what I'm doing. And they don't have that. So they either maladapt, or they don't have that supporting cast and crew and mentorship to help them and tell them, hey, if you really are in this and your heart is in it and your mind is in it and your soul is in it, keep on pushing, because eventually you'll break through and you'll reach that escape velocity where now your pain has transferred into your purpose. Your mess is your message. And he said the difference just between the men that he's dealing with and or like myself with somebody like me is that I had that supporting cast and crew. I did end up taking the mess and the pain and the suffering that I was in and turned it into a message, turned it into useful information as I'm speaking here with you, as I'm trying to help you with the basics of how to be a man and how to evolve as a man. And the job's never done, right? So it's always continuing to stay on top of that process, because you're always building, you're always growing. And if you don't, you'll get left behind. And we're seeing that more than ever right now with male suicide rates and, male loneliness. Males right now, on average, don't have a best friend that they can call on. 0 is the number of best friends they have to call on in an emergency situation. So we just ended up talking about this deep, deep understanding of how his pain and suffering ended up being so useful that now he is literally seeing hundreds of men to help them through their pain and suffering and finding their purpose and their passions in life, and how I have pushed through. And even though we're not in a perfect spot and it's not the spot we really want to be in 100%, it's always a growth. It's a tree of growth. You're climbing one branch to the next and you're figuring it out, getting your footing. The conversation was just so deep and so much insight with it that I just was thinking, like, I got to share this, because so many men go through traumatic situations that they'll never talk about. And that wound festers and infects. And then it affects all of their relationships and all of their life, their life's purpose. And at the end of their life, they end up thinking that they're useless, when really, if somebody was there to encourage them to keep speaking and keep punching through that wet towel, eventually you will break through and reach that escape velocity where now you're on the other side of it and you can actually preach and teach at the same time that of like your situation of how you went through it. Now, our situations will be different, right? Everybody's different. Everybody has, an individual fingerprint, but the story is the same. Everybody's story is kind of the same. And it boils down to another topic that we talked about, and that's the hero's journey. I mean, every single person on this earth has to go through some trials and tribulations. And then, they don't want to be called to that journey. But then there's, once you can't handle the pain of your current reality, that is the only time that you will actually brave the pain and the unknown of change. And you'll make that change when your current reality is so painful, consistently, daily, that you finally say, enough. Unfortunately, a lot of men say enough and then they take their own lives. Or they isolate. And we know now for the human soul that isolation is the absolute worst possible route you could take. Isolation is the fastest way to kill any human. And that's why the most extreme circumstances in prison are complete dark isolation. So if you are in that position, or if this resonates with you, that's what I'm here for. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're shining light on. I don't want you to be isolated. I feel terrible when I'm isolated. I surround myself with an amazing community, amazing family. I curate my story on a daily basis. And there's nobody out there that cannot do the same. So that's why I just really wanted to touch base with you. And if there is, I understand that a lot of therapy is really bunk. A lot of therapists don't really understand how men work, and how we need kind of coaching. So yeah, we need therapy. We need to address those wounds. We need to get in deep and understand the process of how to unravel those wounds so we can actually heal them once and for all and move on with those lessons. So if another wound ever does happen, we become resilient and we know how to fix that wound, address it, and move forward without having it wreak havoc on our life, the rest of our life. That's why I've created this channel. That's why I've created the Better Man Protocol. That's why I'm trying to call all men into gathering together. It's not in your best interest to be so vulnerable with everybody. And I know that a lot of people in mainstream talk about men need to be more vulnerable. They need to cry more. They need to feel their emotions. I think it's a little more than that. I don't think that you should be openly admitting and addressing to everyone or anybody your vulnerabilities. Because number one, that's a lot to put on somebody else, and they're not a therapist. They don't know what to do next. And number two, I don't think that men get better in therapy sitting on a couch singing Kumbaya with the therapist. I think men that have those problems deeply seated need another group of men to discuss these deep-seated issues with. And, oh man, you went through that? I went through divorce too. Like, what do you feel? How do you go through that? What'd you do? You know, did you go out and just sleep with a bunch of women and try to get over that heartbreak? Or are you still pissed? You hold resentment? Or how'd you get in shape? Because I know it changed your life physically and emotionally and mentally. How'd you do that? Like, maybe I need to do that. What's something I can pick up from that? And that's why you have sponsors in Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's why a group of men that have been healed or are on their healing journey is the absolute best avenue for any man that is looking to secure a better future for his emotional intelligence, his future. So, you know, I can go on all day about this, but I just wanted to briefly explain kind of the conversation that we had and how I really want to grow this channel and grow the help, the brotherhood, right? Like, I've been through a lot, and I wish that I had a group of men that when I was going through those things would tell me that. I did have some really good parenting, and I do have a good community around me, but it's only been slowly developed as I've been opening my mind to what the solution really is for me, because therapy didn't really work for me alone, and just I had to kind of figure it out. And now that I figured it out, just like with my friend here, he's really changing so many men's lives just because he did turn his pain and suffering into something useful for other men. So I don't know, maybe that's something that resonates with you. I never thought that my pain and suffering, that's why it was profound to me. Never thought my pain and suffering would be useful to another man. I never thought it'd be useful to anybody else, because I just thought at the time, fuck, this hurts. I don't know what to do. And that's where a supporting cast and crew really comes in. And that's why I'm speaking to you now. And that's why I'm offering you the group that maybe you don't have yet. And if you do, great. Open up. Go full send. Send it. Open up to the men around you. But you don't want to go home and open up all the can of worms onto your wife, your girlfriend, your kids, your family. You don't want to do that, because then they're like, wait a minute. Whoa, Dad doesn't have a direction. He lost his frame. He needs help, but we don't know how to help. And they have anxiety now. The way forward is healed men and healing men to get in a group and talk it out and hold each other accountable. That's a big piece of it. Hold each other accountable to what you say you're going to do. If it's cutting an addiction, if it's treating your relationships better, whatever it is, treating your body better, we need to hold each other accountable. And I really think that a brotherhood is the answer to the massive male loneliness problem that we have now, and suicide epidemic, really. I mean, in the UK, it is the #1 killer of men, suicide by their own hands, taking their own lives. So it really means something to me. I'm very passionate about this. I'm not going away. I built this platform so that I can speak loudly and proudly, and I will not go away until I just touch many, many souls with what I've been through. And your path and your steps could be different, and they may look different, but at least we'll give you some ideas. At least I'll give you a little bit of direction and leadership, and even with the connections and networking with the men. I mean, when men connect and network together, good men, really good things come out of it individually for each one of those guys. So again, if this is something you're interested in, you can find the group right in the description. But this is all free. So if you have no money, all you got to do is just pay with your attention, your ears, and try it on. See how it fits. See you guys.